Your bird watched you leave this morning. You grabbed your keys. Maybe you said goodbye. Maybe you didn't. And then the door closed. What happened in the next 4 minutes is something most owners never think about and never know. Because from where you were standing, you left the house. From where your bird was standing, their flock disappeared. No warning, no explanation, no signal that anyone was coming back. Most people assume the hard part of separation happens after they leave, that whatever their bird feels, it unfolds slowly, over hours. The struggle is out there somewhere, in the quiet, while they're at work. But the research tells a completely different story, and the part that matters most isn't what happens after you leave. It's the 30 seconds before. There's something specific that happens in your bird's nervous system in the minutes following an unannounced departure. Something measurable, something with a name. We'll get to that, and when you understand it, every departure you've ever made will look different. 1. The departure isn't a human moment, it's a flock event. Most people treat leaving the house as a neutral, personal act. You have somewhere to be, you go, your bird is safe, fed, has toys. What more is there? And honestly, that logic makes complete sense from a human perspective. But parrots didn't evolve in apartments. They evolved in dense, complex social flocks where separation meant one thing: danger. Research from the Max Planck Institute for Ornithology has documented that parrots in the wild maintain near-constant acoustic contact with their flock, vocalizing specifically to confirm location and safety. Silence isn't rest. Silence is alarm. When the calls stop, something is wrong. Your bird carries that nervous system into your living room. The wiring didn't change just because the threat level did. But here's the part most owners miss. The brain doesn't need a predator to trigger a threat response. It just needs an unexplained absence, a flock member who disappeared without signaling departure. That's not noise. That's a survival system firing exactly as designed in a body that was built for a world you removed them from. And here's something that matters deeply, and that we'll come back to near the end. The bird who panics least when you leave is almost never the bird with the most toys or the biggest cage. It's the bird who learned, over time, that departures have a pattern, a shape they can recognize. 2. What happens in their body when you vanish without a signal? A 2019 study published in Applied Animal Behavior Science measured cortisol levels in companion parrots before and after owner departures. Birds whose owners left without a consistent pre-departure routine showed cortisol spikes measurable within the first 90 seconds of separation. Birds with a predictable departure routine, even a brief one, showed significantly lower stress hormone elevation. Think about what that number means. 90 seconds. The stress response isn't building slowly while you're at your desk. It fires almost immediately, and it fires hardest when the departure gave the bird nothing to interpret. Here's where it gets interesting. Cortisol elevation in the short term is normal and manageable. It's not the problem. The problem is when it happens every single day, unmitigated, with no resolution, because over months, chronic low-grade stress responses begin to compound. Feather condition changes. Appetite shifts. Sleep patterns alter. The bird who seems fine starts edging towards something that isn't. If this is already changing how you see your morning routine, hit the like button and subscribe. We go deep on this every week, and the next section is where this starts to become something you can actually act on. 3. Contact calls the language your bird already uses for departure. Parrots have a specific vocalization that researchers classify as the contact call, doctor. Carl Berg's fieldwork in Venezuela with green-rumped parrotlets documented that individual birds maintain unique contact calls within their flock specific to them, recognized by their bonded companions, used specifically to signal location and confirm they are still present. Your bird does this with you too. When they call out from another room and wait, they're not being demanding. They're running a flock check. They need to hear you respond to confirm the flock is intact. But here's what nobody tells you. That same system can be recruited at departure. A contact call before you leave isn't a trick, it's the bird's natural language for, "I'm here, and I'll be back." The vocalization that already carries that meaning. Borrowed and redirected. Most owners say goodbye. Some don't, but very few speak to their bird in the language their bird actually processes as reassurance. A short, consistent vocalization, not a word, not a whistle, just a sound repeated every time before departure, can function as a departure contact call. Over weeks, the bird learns to associate that sound with "flock member is leaving and will return." The silence that follows isn't absence. It becomes an expected interval. That's not a trick. That's communication in a format that actually reaches them. 4. The comfort object and why it works when owners think it shouldn't. Researchers at the University of Lincoln studying avian attachment in companion parrots found that bonded birds show secure base behavior similar to that documented in human infants using their primary bond person as a reference. Point from which to explore, returning when stressed. When the secure base disappears, the bird needs something that carries traces of that anchor, not because birds are sentimental, because scent, sound, and visual familiarity are processed neurologically as proximity signals. I find this part genuinely striking. A shirt worn the day before, a piece of cloth from a familiar perch area, something that carries olfactory information the bird has associated with safety. It sounds almost too simple, but the mechanism is real. This isn't about tricking your bird. It's about giving their nervous system something to orient toward when the primary anchor isn't present, an object that signals the flock hasn't dissolved, just rearranged. The birds most resistant to comfort objects are almost always those whose separation responses have already been running unmanaged for months or years. The system that would receive reassurance has been overridden by chronic stress, which is why starting this before the anxiety compounds is so much easier than trying to introduce it after. 5. The goodbye ritual structure is the message. There's a reason a long, emotional goodbye makes things worse, and most owners who do it intuitively sense this, but don't know why. When you draw out a departure talking too long, showing visible distress, returning 3 times to say one more thing, you're not signaling reassurance. You're signaling that something about this departure is different, important, worth attention. Parrots read behavioral deviation the way we read facial expressions. A departure that looks different from usual is a departure that might mean something different. Dr. Susan Friedman at Utah State University, whose work in applied behavior analysis for birds has influenced companion parrot care worldwide, emphasizes the concept of predictability as a welfare variable, not comfort. Not enrichment, but pure predictability. The bird who can anticipate what happens next is a bird whose cortisol system stays quiet. Short, consistent, identical every time, not cold ritualized. That's the shape of a departure that communicates safety, not the length of the goodbye, not the warmth of the words, the structure. And here's something that might surprise you. The ritual doesn't need to be long to be meaningful. 30 seconds, done identically every single day, is neurologically more powerful than 10 minutes done differently each time. 6. The desensitization window and why the next 3 weeks matter most. Here's where we come back to what I mentioned in the first section, that the bird who panics least at departure isn't the most enriched bird. It's the bird who learned departure has a shape. That learning happens in a window, and it can be built deliberately. Behavioral research on systematic desensitization in companion parrots documented through work at institutions, including UC Davis School of Veterinary Medicine, shows that graduated exposure to departure triggers, paired with consistent positive signals, can meaningfully reduce separation-related distress, not eliminate, reduce measurably in 3 to 4 weeks of consistent application. What that looks like in practice: practicing the departure ritual without actually leaving, picking up keys, performing the goodbye sequence, then sitting back down, repeating. The bird's brain learns that the departure sequence is not a predictor of absence, it's simply a sound event. Then leaving briefly, then longer. The nervous system recalibrates not because the bird became braver, but because the pattern became legible. The departure became a known shape instead of an unpredictable event. Think about every departure you've made without a consistent signal. The bird who's been watching you leave randomly, with no ritual, no contact call, no comfort anchor, they haven't been resilient. They've been running a stress response you couldn't see. The next time you pick up your keys, your bird is already watching. What they're looking for is not your words. It's whether this departure looks like something they've seen before. Whether it has the shape that means, "I'll be back." That's what you're building, not just a goodbye, a signal. Tell me in the comments, does your bird have a reaction when you leave? What does it look like? I read every one. And if you want to go deeper, the next video covers what your bird is doing in the first hour after you leave. The behavior is something almost every owner has seen, and almost none of them understand what it means. Your bird has been asking you to come back in the only language they have, and now you know how to answer before you even walk out the door.